You are now tuned into Flipping the Birds, a Philly Sports Network podcast.
What's going on, Eagles fans? Welcome one, welcome all to another episode of Flipping the Birds.
He's into the end zone. Touchdown, Eagles.
What's going on, Eagles fans? Welcome on, welcome all to another episode of Flipping the Birds. I'm Brian Cameron alongside Eric Reese, Zach Chavalella, and it's Saturday morning, the day before the Eagles take on the New York Giants. How are you gentlemen feeling?
Overall, pretty well. Got out of the house, went to a new disc golf course yesterday out in Jersey that I'd never been to. So, that was nice. Relatively relaxing. And hockey, as far as that's concerned, I'm at the arena tonight. So, we're getting back into things.
Okay, that's good to hear. How you feeling, Zach?
Yeah, I'm doing I'd say I'm feeling pretty good. It's Eagles Giants week. Good rivalry there. Feel pretty optimistic overall about the Birds. We'll talk more about that in a minute. And Tyrese Maxey got hurt in last night's Sixers game, so add him to the list of Jared McCain, Paul George, and Joel Embiid, who's still recovering. And we're doing great. Vibes are awesome. So.
Welcome to Philadelphia, people. Welcome to Philadelphia.
It's always sunny in Philadelphia.
There's always something in Philadelphia.
Yeah, that's fair too. It's more fair, actually.
Yeah.
But before we dive into the actual matchup, right? Like, this game has huge expectations because of one particular person, and that's Saquon Barkley, who drove down I-95 to join the Philadelphia Eagles after the Giants pretty much said that they were not going to bring him back. He's kind of downplayed it to the point where it's like, hey, it's just a regular game. Like, I have no ill will, but there's got to be something there, right? Like, Tiki came out and said, you're dead to us, right? That there was a whole spiel. They called him Snakequan and all this whole 9 yards. There's no way that Saquon is going to be this poised going into this game.
I'm ready for him to run all over the Giants. I mean, to be quite frank, I do think that this is sort of, we would like, actually, I should say this. We would like this to be a Saquon game, right? I should say that because of all the times that we'll sit here and say, oh, this is going to be a Saquon game. Like, no question about it. You do have to remember who's coaching and who's influencing what about this team. So it should be a Saquon game. We would like it to be a Saquon game. I think there's a lot of room for that to be kind of the way that this game starts as a narrative to kind of drive the offense. But we'll see at the end of the day here. I think between him and even Mekhi Becton, just not wanting to go back to MetLife or JetLife Stadium, depending on what you want to call it for who's there. A lot of those guys are not necessarily like chopping at the bit to get back on that particular field because apparently the stadium's not that great comparing in terms to what Mekhi said at least. But I think you do have a Saquon who's like, in terms of wanting to go against the Giants and his former team, he wants to get back on that field.
Yeah, I would say two things. First, just a big thank you to Brian for joining us during breakfast. Just a huge shout out to him real quick. But on top of that, if Nick Sirianni is truly a player's coach, as we are constantly told,
we're not doing this.
Well, I'm just saying he's gonna let it be a Saquon game. Like, and I don't want to hear like, oh, well, you don't want to make it a Saquon game at the risk of winning. Nick Sirianni coaching the team every week seems to be at the risk of winning. So it's like we need to embrace what chips on our shoulders we can have. And if that's Sirianni at the fans, that's fine. Whatever. If that's Saquon Barkley at the Giants, that's totally fine by me. If that's Mekhi Becton at the shit field up in Jersey, that's fine too. Like anything that you have in the cannon, like you got to fire it off. So For me, I want to see them embrace that that enabling Saquon. And then on top of that, I want all of his teammates to have his back and use that as motivation as well, because it doesn't have to just be motivation for Saquon. Just because guys like AJ Brown, guys like Keegan Mitchell, guys like Javon Carter, like just because, or Jalen Carter rather, just because they didn't play for New York doesn't mean that they can't have their teammates back and use that as fodder themselves. So,
which AJ
I want to
has
see.
so far. He said
On top of the fact,
expect the beast to come out.
Well, so you want to support your guy, and then on top of the fact that it's the Giants, a division rival, obviously, like use every little bit of bulletin board material you got, because you got to light a spark into these guys, and so I want to see all that.
Yeah, I want to see Nick Sirianni yelling at every fan, any fan. I want to see Saquon Barkley. I want to see Saquon Barkley yelling at specifically Giants fans. I want to see Mekhi Becton yelling at the field, just yelling straight at grass.
Do you think Nick Sirianni could pull off a paid sponsorship with OnlyFans now?
What the hell are we? I know I made the joke, but we didn't have to take it there.
I'm just saying, I'm curious now, because what kind of commercial that would be?
I feel like he's more like a cameo guy where people would pay just to yell at him. Like that seems to be more the vibe, if you ask me.
Unless there's people out there who just like kind of getting bullied, which that's its own thing, I guess. Then maybe we could spin it in that direction, Brian.
I mean, there's people who like to bully, and I think that's what would happen to Sirianni. So, I think that. So Sean actually he checks in, and apparently he draws the line of bald dudes. So, I guess that would be the. No offense, Brian, but I guess that's not in your future.
Wait, pull
either,
up Sean's picture one more time, because
I was going to say the same thing, Brian. I was like, wait a minute. He goes, "There's no hope for me." You know what? I say Sean, Nick Sirianni, and Brian just start getting on there and bullying people.
There we go.
Doug says you want Barkley to pull Sirianni. Would anybody be mad at that? Like if Saquon really gave it to the Giants?
No, because people like Saquon Barkley, and that's the difference. That is the only difference.
Yes.
Okay, let's get back on track before this ends up being another Nick Sirianni podcast. So the Giants,
and that was a defense of Sirianni. I go back and forth, and it's not that I have.
You play hot potato a lot with Nick Sirianni.
It's not that I have a wavering opinion. Is that there's levels to it, and then there's stuff that he does that is unacceptable, and then there's stuff that he does that people deem unacceptable because they just don't like the guy.
It was interesting to see after the game in Jalen's presser, like just looking at Jalen's reaction and his reaction to the question of, did you see Nick Sirianni jarring at the fans? And he was like, he looked surprised by it. He's like, I heard about it. I was put onto it before this. And it's kind of like you're asking the QB if his head coach is behaving. Like that was the reaction. It's like, damn, like this guy did something shit. But nonetheless,
I mean, none of the players had a problem with it, though. It's the thing.
No.
So, like, that's the kind of thing where it's like it's the media who's had a problem with it. It's the fan base who's had a problem with it. We can talk until we're blue in the face if the organization actually had a problem with it. I know there's a report. I can't remember which reporter got it out there.
Jeff McLean got it out.
Jeff McLean. So you don't know who he talked to within the organization. There's people who have differing opinions on things. Like they're all people in that organization. Like we look obviously years ago when the Eagles drafted Milton Williams. I mean, we remember what that draft room was like in that situation, right? So there's people who are going to feel some type of way about all kinds of different things. You can't just because you grab somebody. It's not like he grabbed Jeff Lurie and Jeff Lurie was the one who was saying that. Like we don't know who he grabbed. So it effectively, to me, doesn't matter because people have different opinions about different things. So it's something that, by all accounts, the players didn't have a problem with. And I would call that my number one concern because literally the last thing that Nick Sirianni has is the players, having his back. And if you lose that, you're done.
Yeah, and it seems like that's the key thing to what he's going to damn, this is going to be a freaking Sirianni podcast. I don't mind Nick being Nick, right? Because, listen, we spoke about this many times, right? The Garden version of Nick, the humble version of Nick was dope. Like that was like the guy you want leading your culture, leading your locker room, leading your team, right? What he is right now is a bad mixture of success and not being able to handle it per se. Like, it doesn't seem like he's able to handle the spotlight he's under right now. I mean, I shaved my head for a reason, right? Like, I was balding. He shaved his head for a whole nother reason, and a lot of people are concerned about that because it's just you're out of control right now. Like, you got to find a way to center yourself.
He's spiraling.
It seems like that. Like, it seems like he's spiraling out a bit. Like, he doesn't seem like he knows who he is. And again, you're in Philly. Philly's a tough market. It's probably the toughest market in all the country, to be honest. This isn't Indianapolis. And on top of that, fans expect what we deserve. Like, this is a potent offense and a good enough roster to be at least like what's the record right now? 3-2?
Yeah.
Should at least have like one loss at this point, but nonetheless, it's not gonna make a big difference.
I mean, the Bucks game, I feel like you can kind of like just like watch. Like it's yeah. I mean, it's really the Falcons game that should have been won and really could have been won. Like it's I feel like the further we get away from it, the further we like forget how close that game was.
Mm-hmm.
And if there was even just a little more attention paid on the field, Philadelphia may very well be 4-1. Like that's how small the difference was.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things that would cause a coach to kind of be pulling their hair out, if you will. No, I do think a little bit of that. That jawing back with the fans was a little bit taken out of context because we ran with it, right? Like as a market, as media, like how Zach was saying, fans, we ran with it. When there were fans that were there who gave a little bit of context to it, and it kind of seems like it was blown out of proportion. Marshawn Lynch, we're still not counting the Falcons game as a loss, huh? No, it's a loss. A loss is a loss. At the
It's a huge loss, in my opinion.
It's a loss. It's almost worse because it was a winnable game.
A loss is a loss, but I will say this, though, and a lot of people were focusing on Barkley and that drop pass, and sure, it absolutely would have, if he catches that, great. But also that defense, what was that? What was that? They go 70 yards downfield in like 10 seconds. So at the same time, it's like it's both sides of the ball there. I think, it was the most improbable of comebacks, but they did it. They did it, and it's something that you have to deal with. And because of a game like that early on in the season, we're looking at like 4 weeks later against the Browns game. That I'm hoping, and you would think that the team, there'll be more emphasis on like how the team's playing and how the team is preparing against every opponent, whether it's supposed to be an easy schedule or not. By the way, the Eagles have one of the easiest schedules left as far as the season's concerned in the NFL. But I look at those kind of games and kind of like segue into this Giants game where like I'm not overlooking the Giants at all going into this game, especially with the way that Falcons game ended, the way that more recently, the Browns game kind of went. I mean, that wasn't necessarily a definitive win. One special teams touchdown puts you within 4 points. So a team that can, make not all field goals and get a blocked field goal for a touchdown is all of a sudden competitive with a team that I think at the beginning of the season, a lot of people thought would be a playoff team. And I think they do think the Eagles will be a playoff team. It's just how far in the playoffs, maybe that's changed a little bit.
Yeah. And I think it's kind of the same spiel we gave to Howie Roseman at one point, right? Like Howie was kind of like, he was always acting like the smartest person in the room. And and I always said they were outsmarting themselves in that case. And it seems like with Nick Sirianni, it's like you're overthinking it. It's simple. It's simple. It's not calculus. Run the right plays and put your team in position to win. And it seems like they're just overthinking every single aspect of this offense as well as this defense. Now you mentioned before, right? You don't want to overlook this Giants team because as bad as the Giants have been over the years, one, there's a lot riding on this game because of the Saquon return. Two, as you and I were talking about before the pod, like there's not much different in statistics between both teams. And Giants actually are the second leading team in the NFL in sacks. Eagles are, I think, like 25th with only like 11 sacks on the season. So they can get to the quarterback. Now, granted, they may miss Dexter Lawrence, Brian Burns, and actually Kayvon Thibodeau, all three of them, because they're all questionable right now. But still, nonetheless, they're doing things right on the defensive side of the ball for New York. How do you guys feel about let's start with the offense. What do you guys expect to see from the offense against this Giants defense?
I know, and I'm going to agree with Zach on this, and I'm going to let him run away with the point because it's going to be, something that we're just going to be in unison about. Please, if there's any reason personally with your, obviously with your player personnel in the field, or if there's any reason because you saw how it went against the Browns, established a run, put the offense, let the offense, unravel, or not unravel. That sounds bad, but let the offense kind of distinguish itself off the run. And please, if this game starts with Hurts going, five pass attempts, whether and it could be like 3 for 5, and then maybe hey, 3 for 5, 4 for 5. Okay, that's a little bit of a different vibe, than it was versus Cleveland when he was 0 for 5. But hey, if I want to see the run start, the first thing I want to see is 2 or 3 running plays from Barkley, move the chains, then you can, kind of work on some other stuff. But what you're doing is you're establishing a run, and that's the point made.
Yeah, I think, and Eric and I were talking about this pre-pod. In a general sense, that's something Philadelphia needs to do more of, right? You hear a lot of fans, and if you still listen to sports radio, you'll hear it talked about all day long about the Eagles not running the ball enough. I don't know if it's that they're not running the ball enough. Saquon is getting a good amount of touches. The issue is that they're situationally not running the ball well. They're not establishing the run early, like Eric said. They're not scheming their drives, especially early on when you talk about scripted plays. They're not setting themselves up for success in that regard, right? So you look at this game against New York. Obviously, they have very talented defensive players, especially from a pass defense, specifically a pass rush standpoint. Test those guys in the run, right? Test that hip of Dexter Lawrence that's got him questionable. Test Brian Burns' groin, all right, and run right at him, because moving laterally, that's not going to be fun for him, right? So run the ball every which way, if I'm being straight up honest, because you have a guy who is as versatile as Saquon Barkley. You already have that optionality. Test out individual running lanes, test out different gaps, and just commit to the run. You don't have to, I'm not saying come out and run, 3 running plays in a row, but don't run the ball once and then run away from it because you didn't pick up as many yards as you wanted to, or you're so worried about scoring in the first quarter, you think you have to pass. Like that's not the answer. So, for a team like Philadelphia, it's about rewriting the script early on. It's about focusing on that run early on. And this isn't even, about making it the Saquon Barkley game, but give him the opportunity to test that Giants defense, because if they're limping to that game on Sunday, which they are, you have the opportunity possibly to break something for a big game.
Yep.
And you have a run. Excuse me. You have a running back that's averaging right now in the season 5.3 yards per carry, right? Like you have to take advantage of the productivity.
2 running plays is the first down. Just do that all the way down the field.
Legit. And like you mentioned, it doesn't have to be a Saquon Barkley game, but this team historically is a better run first team than they are pass first. We saw them last year when they ran the ball so much with DeAndre Swift. I forgot what game it was, but it was a game that he started. I think it was week 2, and they won that game, right? Like even in 2017, when Doug Peterson switched to using LeGarrette Blount, using Corey Clement, using Darren Sproles before Darren Sproles went down in the Giants game, like they ended up being a Super Bowl team. Like it's not bad to commit to the run, and I feel like somewhere within Philadelphia, within the organization, at the tippy top, somebody prefers not to have running back statistics be a priority on the team. But it's not a bad thing. The Ravens, they have Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry doing what we expected Saquon Barkley and Jalen Hurts to do this season. So I think what you said was right on the dot. Commit to the run and just rewrite your script. Rewrite your season in this game. This is the get back game for you guys.
I mean, so you look at the money that's tied up in the wide receivers, and I think that's part of the factor, right? So it's I think you can kind of like either call it cyclical or a trickle down, whatever you want to call it. Obviously, there is the love at the top of the Eagles organization for the passing game.
And to that point, it's not necessarily a slight on any sort of depth for our offensive line, but I would feel more comfortable running the ball because you're forcing your offensive lineman to attack with Fred Johnson in there, because Mailata is obviously on IR. But when and by the way, Brian, you were dead on about your Swift point. I think it was you did say week 2 versus
the
Minnesota.
Vikings.
Yeah, 28 rush attempts, 175 yards. And that game, it was like, 6 or 7 yards a carry, something like that. 6.25 yards a carry when you go back and look at that. I look at what this team is, and Zach, you're on the nose with it. Like, there is a lot of money tied up in wide receivers, quarterbacks, I kind of, the plot's kind of lost on me when we talk about marketing the players and who should be getting the production, because I think I agree with you, and if I understand correctly, where it's kind of like a big who cares, right? Like, yeah, you're going to market the players, but who's open on the field, and why would you throw it to a guy, right? If because he's marketed, because it's good business. Put Calcaterra on the poster. If he's going to be open, throw it to him. I don't care. Like, it just, if it makes sense, call that play up. It's just one of those deals where, and you hear it a lot throughout sports, oh, they're going to start this person because they're paying them X amount of money. I'm like, yeah, but which one's better? like, okay, for example, and I'm going to say this just because I'm a little bit, out of the loop on this particular player, but I have a question for the both of you. How close is Sidney Brown to playing?
He's playing.
Okay, so in this case, will he be starting this game, or is he taking more special teams reps?
Probably going to be eased in, I would think.
Yeah,
eased in.
Most likely.
Okay.
Kind of like how Cooper DeJean was easing all those weeks. But I'm
Okay.
stoked to see him on the field once we'll start talking about defense.
Yeah, once we start talking about defense, we'll get in that a little bit more. But that's somebody where, as he's eased in, hopefully he's floored in, probably, within after this game. I look at the safety group there, and it's just hey, they're veterans. These are the people you're marketing. They're paying them some this and that kind of money, and it's just like, yeah, but it hasn't been working. So what are we talking about here? Like, I don't understand that side of the politics, because politics to me is just we're going to blow smoke up everybody's butt about oh, we expect this because we're paying you that. Well, if you're expecting something and versus what you're seeing by week 6, like you have enough of an eye test to sit there and say the politics don't matter.
And we've seen Philadelphia act in that way to some degree, obviously by parting loose to Devin White. Now it's something where we need to see that in a different way, where they're not completely cutting ties with the guy, but you have to be afraid to, not try something new if something's not working, right? So, obviously one major talking point, on this team is Bryce Huff, right? And the lack of production there. So, yeah. So if that is going to continue, which I guess to his credit,
I mean, he had his best game on
improving.
Sunday.
Yeah, and so give him an opportunity.
4 fingers in the ground, and he was going off.
If he okay, yeah, 4 fingers in the ground. Yeah. So I mean, that's where you get into the philosophical difference between what Vic Fangio wants out of an edge rusher and what Bryce Huff is.
Probably wants 5
but
fingers.
Say it, Zach. Just say it.
Say it.
It's 4 fingers and a thumb, Eric. So
it's fair. That's fair. He wants 4 fingers and a thumb in the ground.
I mean, this is an opportunity, where you would look to possibly go to someone else in that kind of situation, right? So, and I know that on the outside, it's a little bit more bare bones. I mean, you're talking about Nolan Smith and Jalix Hunt are really the only other two in a positionally similar situation, but I wouldn't mind adding a little bit more strength on the outside, and just the way that a guy like Moro Ojomo has rushed the pass this entire season, increase his snaps. Like that's the kind of stuff that I'm not looking to give Huff snaps away to a guy like Brandon Graham, who you have to kind of manage his a little bit at this age. But
I feel like Fangio, and correct me if I'm wrong on this, I just want to point this out, but Fangio doesn't rotate his guys like Jonathan Gannon did. Like, I feel like that was so key in that run that Gannon had.
It's not the same, but I think part of that also is personnel, where we're not seeing, like, Gannon had more. I can't think of a better word than this, but like personnel kind of oozing from, there's just more general depth, right? And I don't think that's necessarily the case here in Philadelphia, because you look at the starters, like, and then you look at the depth. I mean, the two best depth guys on that line have been Moro Ojomo and Thomas Booker. So where exactly are you going to be, factoring in those rotations? Like, that's kind of the biggest issue. But so I would like to see more opportunity for a guy like Ojomo, who is performing, I think, fantastically. But you feel like you kind of need to get that out of Bryce Huff, but at a certain point, you have to kind of accept Huff for what he is. And if you want to, play him in a more predictable fashion, and only in situations where, he's 4 fingers and a thumb in the ground and, rushing the passer, like,
okay. I got a question for you, Zach.
Okay.
If it's 4 fingers and a thumb, then why we call it a 5-finger discount? Okay.
What? Wait. How often do you use that phrase?
Are you comparing rushing the passer to stealing something from a store?
Yes.
Well, I think more so he's talking about Bryce Huff's contract, if anything. But
no,
I thought that was the. Is that not what you were?
Yeah, sure, we could do that. Yeah,
but
let's just go to the defense, guys. Malik Neighbors is expected to play. I'm not sure about Devin Singletary. Obviously Daniel Jones is back there. I don't know about you guys, but this has to be the game. I swear, if Quinion Mitchell doesn't get a damn interception at this point, I'm gonna lose my mind. He almost had one.
They're
No thanks to
trying.
TJ,
They're
DJ.
trying to make sure he does not any way that they possibly can. I mean, they're sending CJ in, to run interference. Like they
I
are
still don't know what Garner
making
Johnson
it
was
hard.
doing on that. How you're not aware? Like you have to be aware where you are in the field.
Have we seen a season where so closely together we've seen a player tackled by his own teammates twice, and then an interception batted away by his own teammate in such a short amount of time? Like they are not making it easy on these rookies. I don't know what the thought process is, whether like you're sharpened by not controversy, but struggles, by difficulty, but they're not making it easy on these rooks. I'll tell you that right away.
That's a very, very fair outlook. But these rooks, I mean, Cooper looked freaking phenomenal last game. The way they're using them, I think, is intelligent to say the least, which we have not used that term with this defense or offense. Quinion Mitchell is playing out of his mind. I mean, the fact that the Eagles got him at the selection that they got him without having to trade up is still mind blowing. But he's looking like the lockdown corner that we expected him to be. The defensive line, Jalen Carter, he finally got his first sack of the season last week. He did speak about, that it's the first sack, but this defensive line does need to accomplish more on Sunday. So it should be, I'm really hoping this is the get right game where, something's got to, they got to turn the corner at some point, offensively and defensively. But looking at the defense, what do you expect to see against this very poor Giants offense?
Just to see the way that Quinion Mitchell stacks up against Malik Neighbors. Malik Neighbors is going to be back in this game, obviously. He's coming off a concussion. However, I don't know if you guys picked this up from Brian Dibble's interview, but apparently he had a concussion. He was out at a concert. And they wanted to handle that internally. I mean, like, thank you.
In his ears.
Go ahead to another concert because I'm starting, Wendell on my fantasy team, so that'll be good. Targets are targets, I guess. I'll put it this way. Though. I do want to see, in all seriousness, the way that those two rookies stack up against each other, because that's going to be a matchup you're going to see for a long time, probably. So. That's my number one. And I guess I'm just going to just name one other one here, but I need to see, and I feel like I'm calling this out every week, but Garner Johnson, man, if he's going to keep talking and talking and talking, I need to see him wrap up and make the hits too. And he's had he has his weeks where it's like, okay, I give him the flowers because I have on like 2 separate games so far. But there's been a lot of ball watching and staying around that Cleveland game. There's been a lot of, we've already talked about how he tackled his own player out of an interception. I need to see less of that. And that'll maybe restore a little bit of faith in the safety room until Sidney Brown comes back, because that's what I'm hoping for. So,
what do you think, Zach?
Yeah, first of all, I would say, Eric, I don't have a great feeling about Wan'Dale Robinson in this game, because I think that he's actually going to have Quinion Mitchell on him for a fair bit.
Robinson is going to have Mitchell on him then.
That's what I'm thinking.
Okay.
Just watching what I have seen of Malik Neighbors so far, they move him around a little bit, but he does play that right side of the field quite often, and that's obviously Darius Slay territory. Now, it all matters if Slay actually plays in the game. He's questionable. I think he will play in the game. I think he was a full participant in practice on Friday. It's just that he's still listed with the questionable status just in case. But I think you're looking at a situation where they also want to put that veteran on that rookie and hopefully get a competitive advantage there. As exciting as that rookie matchup would be, because you're talking about far and away the best wide receiver of this rookie class versus far and away the best cornerback of this rookie class. I mean, that's going to be a matchup like for years and years to come.
Hold on, can I interrupt real quick? I just want to break out the moment where I think it was Thursday night. Zach's like, "Oh, Kool-Aid!"
Yeah. So during the whole pre-draft
Yeah.
process, obviously we all had our corners who, we
Mine was
kinda,
Kool-Aid.
Eric was Kool-Aid. I had Nate Wiggins, which I stand behind. Nate Wiggins is a absolute killer. He just got hurt. And then I think it was Morgan a lot, and possibly Brian too, who were really behind Kenyon. And my biggest thing was that I didn't think Kenyon would be available for Philadelphia. And so the fact that it worked out the way that it did, kind of like Brian said, it's just incredible to think about for Philly. And Kool-Aid McKinstry getting blown up after getting substituted. But anyway, that's not neither here nor there.
He's got a cool name. Why not?
He'd probably be better in Philly than he is in New Orleans. Not a whole lot of stuff's going right in New Orleans right now. But anyway, just talking about these receivers here. I do think it's going to be an interesting game when you look at that secondary. I think this is a game where you have to really focus on the pass rush if you're Philadelphia, right?
Mhm.
Kind of let your guys in the secondary take care of business. You can trust, for the most part, Darius Slay. You can trust Kenyon Mitchell. Cooper DeJean has given you a lot of reasons to trust in him as well. So his matchup's not necessarily going to be easy against a guy like Darius Slayton. But for me,
Darius Slayton has a groin injury as well.
I don't know what's going on in New York, but that's happening quite a bit there. So when you look at this offensive line for New York, obviously they lost their left tackle. That's an area that you're going to want to just establish as much pressure as possible. And part of that is I think ideally rotations and getting guys in healthy there. But, part of it is just putting your best man there again and again and again. And so that's going to be Brandon Graham, and that's going to be spelling Brandon Graham, with a guy like Bryce Huff here and there, again, in that forefinger and a thumb stance.
Don't forget the
Bryce Huff homecoming game, dude. Do you think he has more than
honestly, if there's anybody who needs bulletin board material, it's got to be Bryce Huff. I want to see it. I want to see him, unleash his frustrations, inside that stadium that he once saw success.
Yeah, a strip sack for a five-finger discount. So
So with this game, I wholeheartedly agree with the both of you on who needs to be the focus point for the defense. But with this game, and before we get to predictions, at what point of this game do you deem the Eagles season a bigger, more red alarm than it is at right now? What does the score have to be to really sound the alarms, where it's kind of like, okay, this team's just not turning it around?
Oh, you mean in that sense?
Yeah.
If Philadelphia is close to the Giants at half or down at half, then that's where you're just kind of like, you know what? It's not just the Browns. It's not just some of these teams that it's not just a banged up Saints team. Well, even then I guess they weren't as banged up as they are now. But it's not the fact that you had a kind of a tough sledding against maybe some sloppy football week 1, and you come back and you have this good rebound game against the Saints when they're not as banged up, and then you turn around and it's the same sort of thing against the Giants, and then you look not that great against the Browns. You kind of think that maybe with these guys back, even with the weapons that that are back, and as far as the wide receivers, that this team may be a little bit no, it's not pre-recorded. This team,
live, Ryan. You are live.
The team could be, a little bit more, dare I say, overrated if that's the scenario where at halftime it's a close game against the Giants. Because I don't look at the Giants as a team that should strike fear into the hearts, and if they do, sort of strike fear into the hearts of the Eagles and Eagles fans. And I feel like they should be kind of feeling the same way that what I'm saying right now, that the Eagles maybe are not as good as we thought they were. But this is a game where I think the urgency is on the Eagles before the kickoff. You got to go in there and, geez, this had to happen already, but you have to go in there and score a touchdown in the first quarter. I don't care how you go about it. If it's a a return, if it's a block, if it's an interception and a fumble recovery, a rushing touchdown or a passing touchdown, whatever it may be. If there is any other way that you can score a touchdown, I don't care. You got to do it in the first quarter. You got to get out with something that says,
Hail Mary
I
on
walked
the first drive.
Fine, do it. You know what? I want to see something, though, in the first quarter. And because we have it, that's something that just hasn't been there.
That's fair.
I think for me, it's first and foremost, obviously, about the win, right? Philadelphia has to walk away with a win. And I saw Marshawn Lynch earlier call us out.
Yeah, he was dogging us for a bit.
How we felt. Oh, what else is there? How we were saying that, last week, judging the win last week. First and foremost, roll back the tape. I have been in that camp that Philadelphia won the game, right? Throughout even the Sirianni conversations. I think the fact that they won that game is crucial. I think that you cannot overlook the fact that Philadelphia won that game against Cleveland. That doesn't mean that you can't be critical of what didn't work against Cleveland. Yeah. Oh no, we got eyes.
So just to put this out there, we're reading the chat, right? I won't populate the comments so much just because when it comes to the reels and everything of that sort, we can't it just doesn't work for the comments. Yeah. But yes, we are reading the chat. Yes, Kayvon, we are reading the chat
for sure. So, and a guy like Marshawn Lynch makes himself known. So, all that just to say, obviously, a win is first and foremost most important. We'll get to that in a second, Ryan. Obviously, first and foremost, a win is most important, right? On top of that, I need to see some level of offensive success. I can't have another Saints game where even if Philadelphia pulls it out, it's 15-12 or whatever it was. I just can't have another game like that. And I understand that that's more likely to happen than a shootout between these two teams. But I need to see Philadelphia show some signs of life on offense. And if this game somehow becomes 30-27, I will feel immensely better about a 30-27 win over New York than I would about a 15-12 win over New York. That's my biggest need at the end of the day.
Do you guys remember playing your first Madden game? It's a legit. Just walk down this path with me. Do you guys remember that moment? And actually playing on all Madden. Let's go there. Your first all Madden game.
Yeah, in 2001.
And how frustrating it was because no matter what you did, it just wasn't freaking working.
Yeah, nobody could ever cover Randy Moss. And Dante Culpepper had small hands.
The man's hands. Leave the man's hands alone.
Okay, I'll leave him alone. Kenny Pickett.
This team really feels like somebody's playing on all Madden and they don't know what the hell they're doing. Like offensively, defensively. I know Ryan has a question about the way Fangio schemes things. But shit, listen to Jordan Mailata. Unhitch the trailer. This has to be the game. This has to be the game they turn it around, because if they don't, I don't see Sirianni lasting past another 2 weeks if they keep faltering like this.
He's not getting fired mid-season.
I'm firing him myself if that
I
happens.
disagree. That's an.
I will have Zach and Eric escort him off the field.
They would need to go on an extreme losing streak for that to happen. And if they continue to half-assedly win games, that there's no way he's getting fired during the season. After the season, for sure, but during it would take. I mean, it would take another fan outburst. It would take an outburst at a player, which would never happen considering his relationship with the players, or it would take a 4-game losing streak, because their schedule is not that weak, or rather, it's not that strong, I should say. So
it's one of the easiest
4-game losing streak would be. I mean, that'd be crazy for Philadelphia.
So we're running out of time.
I gotta disagree with one chat comment that I see in there when Hurts is scared to look a pass across the middle.
I was gonna throw that up
because I see that and I'm just like, okay, but what did Smith do last week?
From actually looking at it from from the press box angle, it doesn't seem like Hurts is actually scared to do anything in the middle of the field. It just seems like Hurts is not giving anything in the middle of the field. And when he is, we saw Smith run across the field. He got a first down and a touchdown, right? We saw Dallas Goedert and the Saints run across the field, touchdown. Like when it's given to him, he does it. But
it's not their often.
His first read is always down the field, and that drives me freaking nuts. And again, it comes to the designer of the play. It comes to what they want Jalen to do. Jalen's not a bad deep pass thrower at all.
Well,
like he can nail it.
I would say it's not that he's a bad deep pass thrower. It's not that he's a good deep pass thrower, but he has AJ Brown.
It's a timing thing.
It's an AJ Brown thing. I don't know if he had somebody that wasn't necessarily like the monstrosity of AJ Brown out there that he would be as successful throwing that go route.
That's fair.
So the one thing that I do want to say about that is I think there's a little bit of I think the truth lies somewhere in the middle, right? I do think that there is something to Jalen Hurts not being as comfortable throwing over the field. Not that he can't, not that he's scared, but that he prefers to throw to the outside than he does over the middle. I think he also prefers to play out of shotgun than he does under center. I think these are all things that are factored into the offense, the reason why it is the way that it is. I think that they have taken it to an unhealthy extreme in which they are always playing out of shotgun, in which they are almost always consistently throwing outside. And I understand, when you look at a guy like Jalen Hurts, the stature that he is, he's not short, but he's not, I would say he's below average in terms of height as a quarterback. That is, an effect that we often see is that throwing directly over the field, like balls get batted down, you don't have the same vision that you have. So I understand why he may have some reservations throwing over the middle of the field. What I need to see are routes that cross the middle of the field. And even if he's not throwing the ball, like even if he's not maintaining his spot in the pocket throwing over the field, I would love to see him, and I've consistently said this, bootleg to the right, run Devontae on a slant over the middle of the field, and then connect with him on the right side of the field, and like earn rack yardage from there. Like
that's pure Madden.
Just utilize
pure Madden.
It is pure Madden, but that's the thing. It's like you break it down to like its simplest. It works. It's effective. At that point, you have the option where Jalen Hurts would theoretically have more field open ahead of him, where he can hold onto the ball and run. I don't think that he's as cooked as an athlete as a lot of people are saying. I think that he still has a good bit left in his legs. I think that we've seen that.
People are saying he's
been confident as a runner.
I didn't say that.
Who's
no, not us. Not us.
No,
not
who
us.
is? Who's saying Jalen Hurts is cooked as an athlete?
If it's Philly media, we're not going to get into it. We're not doing it.
It's Philly media.
We're not doing it. We're not wasting any time.
It's Philly media.
Dude. Just go to the predictions.
But I'm glad that you guys are on the same side as me with this here, because like we've seen him be able to run. He's not running as much. He's not running.
I'm not much of an athlete anymore. That's different. I'm 35.
Yeah, well, both of us. I got one shoulder.
Well, I think it's much more about the scheme. I think it's much more about the confidence in the play design and how it develops, right? So I think that we've seen already this season Jalen Hurts run with an immense amount of confidence. You just need to reestablish that. And part of that is establishing the run. Part of that is utilizing him in a way where you give him, like, you don't just necessarily need to run RPOs. Like you can run more kind of like, they're not actual RPOs, but I'll call them theoretical RPOs.
Freaking play action, for the love of God.
That would be great. And on top of that, like that rolls right into that bootleg conversation that we're talking about here, because you can run a play action right into a bootleg, and then again, you run a guy on a crossing route right over the middle of the field, and whether it's a Calcaterra, whether it's a Devontae Smith, you want to run AJ Brown out of the slot, whether you even want to run like even on an out route Saquon Barkley at that point, like you have options, right? So I don't know. We could talk all day about what the offense could do better. And we I feel like kind of do at a certain point, but I mean, man, it's just this. It doesn't need to be as difficult as Philadelphia's making it at the end of the day, and that's concerning. But it also means that the fix is not extremely difficult. It's just you have to be willing to make the adjustments.
Agree.
It's insane to me that I mean, you guys were right about the working out a shotgun as many times as they do, because it's just like, it would change so much of the looks, and by the way, the defensive preparation too, just by putting Hurts underneath center and allowing a run, or putting him underneath center and hitting that quick slant or whatever, because you got guys who can absolutely do the slant or the drags or all that's just the easy stuff like that across the middle.
Just
And
simplify it.
And I don't think that, by the way, Hurts would ever be afraid to be like, all right, let's go for that. Now, will he make the improper read sometimes and throw into double coverage and try to really stuff the ball in there? We've seen it already. So, yes, he will. But I think that is not just exclusive to Hurts either. Like, we've seen some quarterbacks going, I think I can make that. Like, all the way dating back to, like, Brett Favre in the Green Bay uniform.
And when it works, it works. And when it doesn't, it doesn't. And it's just, in Philly, everything's microscoped a lot more, as the chat is doing today, apparently.
Apparently we've never seen the like core Italian movies. Like we never seen Casino, where they put their rat underneath the pot and have them eat through the stomach and stuff like that.
Bro, who's the fuck thought I never saw The God? Like that's literally every New Year's, my family as a unit, we watch The Godfather 1 and 2.
Yeah, we've never kept our friends.
We don't have time for
enemies closer. We never did that.
Predictions. Let's go predictions. Let's wrap it up.
I mean, two out of three of us are Italian.
Like Brian's like, let's get to predictions. I'm seeing that right there, and I'm just like, yo, you're talking to two Italian people telling us we've never seen that? That's rude. That's rude.
It is rude. It's ignorant is what it is.
It's back to bodega stuff.
That's awesome.
Predictions. Eagles, Giants. I have Eagles winning 24-17. And 24, I feel like is a stretch, but it's a potential this offense should be reaching. What do you guys think? I think this game is carried by Saquon, 2 touchdowns. I give him a $130 in rushing yards. Yeah, that's me.
Yeah, definitely triggered for sure. You got to know when you come to two Italian people telling you never seen that. That's come on, you send me to a different planet, man. I'm with that one. Yeah. Let's go Philadelphia. Jeez, you kind of said something that was very close. I'll say Philadelphia 27-20. I think it's going to be a touchdown game, sort of like what you were saying there. I'm going to give the Giants a little bit more leeway, maybe with their kicker. I think there's going to be, just for the sake of fantasy, a Wendell Robinson touchdown. But and also an AJ Brown touchdown. So I'm having fun.
What do you think, Zach?
Yeah, I like I said, I have a little bit of faith this week. I feel like Philadelphia comes out on top 27-17. I think that the offense does get going a little bit. I think this team is the team's fired up, and it's just about now focusing that on the field. It's about Nick Sirianni focusing. It's about Kellen Moore focusing, Jalen Hurts. And I think that they're ready for that. I won't call it the first good game. I think the Packers game was really good. I don't know what
I like the Packers game a lot
after that. Like I can't explain what happened after that. I mean, they're averaging less than 16 points over the last 3 weeks. Like just insanely disgusting. But you watch that Green Bay game, and it's a completely different team. So I think that we do see a little bit closer to that Green Bay effort. And yeah, 27-17, I feel pretty confident about that.
Did it feel like in that Green Bay game, we definitely saw a lot more of a, let Kellen Moore run his offense? And then it's kind of been more Sirianni underneath the thumb of that sense.
That was the first week that we saw a lot of motion, I feel like.
It's
right.
gone down
a lot more motion and a lot of Saquon.
Yes, it's gone significantly down. Which
diminished a lot.
They've been without AJ and Devontae after that game, and it's Philly.
Yeah, so if they can get back to that.
And make sure you guys hit the like button if you're watching on YouTube, even if you guys don't agree that Zach and Eric have watched Goodfellas or Godfather.
Or Casino. Or
disgusting.
Jesus.
Until next week.
Rude.
Brian Cameron alongside Zach Chavalella, Eric Reese, and we're flipping the birds.
Go Birds!
Yes, sir.
Flip